Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Fantasy Soccer Podcast. My name is Andrew Laird, Senior Soccer Editor of RotoWire, joined once again by Ryan Belongia, this time to talk about Monday's two-game Euro slate. Ryan, we were just talking, and I was like, hold on, we got to start recording this because I wanted to have this conversation because I think there are a few others who are kind of in our boat. But from an ROI perspective, this tournament has been an absolute disaster for me. And it's a little frustrating because for a number of reasons. Part of what I want to blame it on is playing more GPPs than I basically have given up playing cash. Whether that was the right decision or not, I'm still not sure, but it's almost a little easier for me to accept losing in GPPs just because I know generally you lose way more often than you win. And so I'm all right with that. But I was saying that when you lose in DFS, it's important to figure out if you lost because you made a mistake or if you just got unlucky or whatever it is. And I have absolutely made some mistakes in this tournament, but it just feels like more of my losses are because I'm unlucky. Like we talked about, it feels like every penalty goes against you, and it's just where you lose to stupid goals that are owned more than they should be. And it's just such a horrible rut to be in. And I keep having to remember what you told me I think it was the second podcast we did, that there's always another slate. And certainly with the Euros, we're getting them every day. But I've spoken to a few people who I think are in the similar boat that the ROI for what we were hoping for is just not quite there this tournament.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that boat with you. From an ROI perspective, it's probably the worst 2 weeks I've ever had playing DFS soccer. The first thing that comes to mind is just the sample size needed to know whether you're playing good or optimally or however you want to describe it. The sample size is so big. I mean, soccer is very variable, with goals being a large part of what determines how slates end up. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough. Just speaking for myself, yeah, it's important because sometimes you're not sure if you're getting unlucky or if you're playing bad. And at least for me, it can affect my confidence with the next slate. I think it's very important to understand that the sample size needs to be big. And I know it's annoying to hear, but it's really all there is to hang your hat on when it goes like this. It's brutal to take. Yeah, I think, right, it's important to be honest with yourself too, because you don't want to use that as an excuse to play bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a ton of luck in this tournament though. Some people would say, yeah, well, that's all the time. Yeah, we've had a lot of penalties. You're right. A lot of weird ownership get there. And on these smaller slates, that affects things a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, I'm thinking about it now, I'm just going back into the mini depression that I've been in from 2 weeks of slates like this. I think you just got to trust what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like you said, GPPs should be a little bit easier to take because you're not supposed to win very many of them. I forget what Jordan says about how many GPPs he wins on versus how many he loses on. And, it could be around 90% for the slates that you lose on, mm-hmm. depending on the way you're playing GPPs. Yeah. I don't know. Just got to keep going. I mean, do you have any words? I'm a bit lost. I'm sorry not to inspire much confidence. It's a brutal run we're on.
Yeah. Well, I think, and it obviously is frustrating from the perspective that we talk about these slates every day. And there have been like plenty of slates where what we discussed happened, but I just didn't go that way. And it's like, that's not going to make me end up, starting to build 150 lineups. Like it's just, that's not going to end up being it. But so from that perspective, like for people who listen to this podcast regularly, watch these videos, like our goal is not to tell you who to play. And it's not to tell you who I'm going to play, because that's just not what we do. But the point is like, this is how we think the slate will play out. This is how we think everybody else will build lineups. And this is how you can leverage that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've had times where we're like, okay, if this is how everyone is going, then maybe if you just would go this way. And I think part of my losses have been because I'm not taking that enough of a step. And I'm just saying like, all right, well, maybe I'll get like one guy or two guys from this other game. And I'm not being aggressive enough getting off of the chalk and coming from some, my, many slates of playing cash games. It's a big change for me to be like, this is the chalk. And I actually don't want to play that. And it's not even just ignoring chalk. Like that's not enough. It's like leveraging off of that chalk to the appropriate places. And I'll admit that I've had slates on this during this tournament where I just missed it. And I was like, the lack of aggressiveness got me in this weird middle ground of like, I didn't score enough with the chalk and whatever I played elsewhere didn't hit. So like, that's my fault. And like, I get that. But I think like this slate that we had yesterday, we were like, if you really want to think that if you want to get off of the chalk idea, then maybe Italy goes 120 and it's scoreless. And we were like, but that's probably not going to happen. But like, probably not going to happen it will not happen. And I didn't make lineups thinking for 120 with Italy, and certainly not a Denmark smash. So like, I think part of at least my own reflections on my lineups is I think I just need to be a little more aggressive, going a lot more aggressive, going the other way.
Yes, me too. And I feel the same way. Sometimes, you mentioned not max entering 150 lineups. Yeah, that's the same for me. I've been playing 20 lineups for the GPPs, and I've noticed some of the same lack of, I guess, aggressiveness, I guess you said, or playing it too safe. And that comes like, it's hard to break out of that, especially when you've had a lot of losing days in a row. Like your mind can start to go in circles with how you're building lineups, I guess, or what your goals are. You're right, though. I think we've been on the right track. We've talked about all of the, I guess, what you should do or what you could do, the leverage options, when to go against the chalk. But I guess it's about doing that. So hopefully some people have. At least we've given out some good information, even though we haven't necessarily had the guts to use it ourselves. Italy last night, and then Netherlands today. Chalk Netherlands today. Just basically completely busted. I remember you mentioned in yesterday's pod was 5 Czech Republic players too much, and I basically just like laughed it off, said no, or I said yes, it's too much.
It's too much. Yeah,
clearly was not too much. I mean, we're not sure what's going to happen in this second game yet, but there's 5 Czech players that did pretty well. So if you have that, you're looking great. So yeah, I guess we can just keep trying to get better. Like you said, focus on being aggressive and just making the right plays. Like not worrying about what's happened to us in the days prior. I know it's like brutal and it scars you sometimes going forward, but you just got to remember that all these slates don't go together. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day and just like a chance to start over. Everything stands alone. It doesn't matter what happened in the previous days. So you just got to think like that. It's downswings are tough. Getting unlucky is tough. But if you're honest, you'll get better from it. It's tough, but you'll get better from it.
I think that's absolutely the point, though, that like you can't look at what happened, at least results wise, in your own returns and think like that's what's going to happen again, or that's what just because this happened last time, then I have to do it again. Like, you're right. Everything stands on its own. And, hopefully if you made a mistake last time, you've learned from that mistake, but, you just have to move on. It's true. Like, today's slate has nothing to do with yesterday's slate and the day before. And, just because you played it one way, I think the biggest thing, and you kind of mentioned it, was if you start losing like this, then it's almost like every day where you have a loss, your next lineup just becomes a little safer. And that's like the opposite. Not that you need to get like grossly aggressive, but like if you have a strategy for GPPs that's generally more contrarian and you look for leverage, and then that doesn't hit over a certain amount of time, and you're like, maybe I should start going the other way. Like you said, the sample size, unfortunately, is so small in this tournament, that people, I remember that in our subscriber Discord, just before the tournament started, somebody was like asking about, trends that they saw in the main GPPs during these international matches because they had been losing for a while. And I was like, well, how many have you played? And it's like, well, I've been playing these friendly slates for like a week and a half and I haven't cashed yet. And I'm like, you're thousands of slates away from figuring out if you're going to do it. And friendlies themselves are frustrating enough. So it's like, you need to figure out what you can actually learn from, and hopefully you just bounce out of it. But we have a slate tomorrow to bounce out of it.
Yeah, just to add to that, if you're if you're a newer player to soccer who just started playing, recently or for these Euros, don't think that you're playing bad necessarily. Like Andrew said, it takes a long sample size. Slates don't always go like this. I think there's been more luck involved in a lot of these slates. So keep playing. Yeah, things will get better. That's, I guess, is the best way to put it. Try not to get discouraged. You can win in soccer, and you will win. So just if it hasn't been going great for you and you just started playing, don't give up.
There we go. All right. 2-game slate on Monday. We've got this one was a little different. Not a little. Is actually very different than any slate we've had so far. The first match, we've got Spain pretty heavily favored against Croatia. And then the second match of the day, France, a big favorite against Switzerland. So we haven't had this like two big favorites, at least on these 2-game slates. And so these teams are very different in how they score fantasy points, but odds-wise, they're almost identical. And so I think there is going to be a popular build that I'm going to try to get out of, because if everybody's playing the same way, then I guess we gotta zag when they're zigging.
Yeah.
So how do you see this one going down?
Yeah. Okay. Very interested to hear your thoughts, because I think this is one of the tougher slates for a lot of reasons. You mentioned the odds quickly. I'm looking at them now on Pinnacle. Both Spain and France are minus 163. Exact same favorites. The total is slightly higher in the Spain game, but they're hovering around 2.25. So as far as the matchups go, they're basically identical. And that's really all you should consider. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways you can go on this slate. You mentioned that you think there's going to be a popular build or construction. I'm interested to hear what that's going to be. Yeah, so I don't know. Started off at forward.
So I think the way that obviously everyone's going to look at that and say, let me get as many France and Spain pieces as I can. And I don't think that's a bad idea. So there's that. I think France gets the preferential treatment over Spain because we know Spain's going to have the ball a lot, but they tend not to produce a ton of fantasy points. They tend to produce a lot of accurate passes, but in terms of like shots and chances created, and I'll admit they have picked that up recently, but still France has the players that we probably want to target the most. I think the difficulty on the slate is actually the matchups. So I think if Croatia was playing France, we'd be a lot more open to playing them, but they're not. And so Spain is a team that is going to want 100% possession, and France doesn't really play that way. And so that leads me to think that Switzerland at least has more, as weird as it sounds, floor upside. Like I think they'll be able to produce more peripheral stats. But I'm not sure how crazy I am about them anyway. But in terms of the forwards, I think everybody has Griezmann.
Okay. So, okay. First of all, I think you're spot on about that matchup thing. If Croatia was playing against France, we would like them a little bit more because Spain is going to have the possession and France doesn't necessarily play like that.
Right.
So I definitely think that's a starting point. It makes, when you're just talking about the underdogs, it makes Switzerland a bit more appealing. I agree with you that the guys should have better floors. They'll see more of the ball and probably will see more chances. I mean, you never know, but I think that's a good, I think it's likely. As far as the players, everybody's going to have Griezmann. This is the first thing that I think makes this slate interesting. I don't know if I'm going to have Griezmann. Let's just take the last game against Portugal. France had one corner kick. Mbappe took it. I mentioned before the last France slate that I had read something about Mbappe taking over set pieces from Griezmann, but I said that Griezmann would still be on the corners. They only had one, but he didn't take it. Griezmann had 0 crosses last game. I think France were losing in that game also to Portugal, which is a bit interesting. So, yeah, it's really weird that, like, I wouldn't necessarily have Griezmann against Switzerland. And maybe I will. Sure, there's like a path to having both, but I'm going with Mbappe if I'm just choosing between those two. It's like, it's weird to say for cash, but I'd do it for cash too. And, take this with a grain of salt from someone who's not a cash player normally. I don't know. I'll take Mbappe. I mean, what do you think?
I think we're more likely to see Griezmann and Mbappe lineups than Mbappe without Griezmann. I don't think people are willing to give Mbappe enough set pieces in their minds to think he's a better play than Griezmann. I don't know if that's right, but I think that's where most people are going to think. I think they say, France, big favorite, let me go get Griezmann and kind of move from there. You can definitely play both. Like salary-wise, you can, for cash, if you prioritize set pieces, like you can get both and it's not a total disaster. But I think the part of the reason you end up with both is the forwards on this slate aren't great, at least for cash. You're probably not playing one from Spain if you can play Griezmann and Mbappe. I don't think you're playing one from Croatia. And the reason you play one from Switzerland is because they're cheap. I guess that applies to Croatia as well. But I think like from an actual floor perspective, you just kind of naturally end up with Griezmann and Mbappe.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're not going to play a Spain forward in cash. Like you said, those the forwards from the underdogs are cheap. So, I mean, yeah, okay. Just Griezmann versus Mbappe again. If you're going to choose one, I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I'm a huge Mbappe fan. I'll just say, if they're close at all, I just don't see how you wouldn't play Mbappe, because at least for me, his goal upside is significantly higher than Griezmann's. So, I mean, if it's close at all, I mean, not to mention he's cheaper, but that doesn't even really matter. Like, if it's close at all and I can only play one of those guys, I'm absolutely playing Mbappe. I mean, this is like a different thing, but he hasn't scored a goal this tournament. If you believe in positive regression, I mean, 4 goals are coming against Switzerland. I mean, at least a hat trick. So, I mean, give me all the Mbappe. But yeah, I think both of them makes a lot of sense too. Do you think that's what most people do, or do you think they just play Griezmann or one of these guys and pay down?
I think we see more both than one of them.
Yeah. Just for me, I think both makes more sense too.
I'll say, and it might be a huge mistake, but for tournaments, and I think they'll all be really popular in tournaments, but in tournaments, I love the idea of Mbappe and Benzema and fading Griezmann.
Love it. That's the first tournament lineup I made. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Benzema on penalties. Again, like, this is just me. I'm not believing in Griezmann's floor as much as I used to. So, I mean, it could be wrong, but yeah, love Mbappe and Benzema together for tournaments.
Okay. I agree. I mean, I think even if you try to get all 3, that even becomes too popular.
You think so? I'm hoping. Yeah, that it's hard to get all 3.
It is.
I was just maybe hoping that people would be off France a little bit, but it's hard to be off them when there's just 2 games on the slate and they're a big favorite. But I mean, they've underwhelmed, definitely. So I would say if they had cruised through these first 3 games, they'd be more popular than they're going to be. Yeah,
I think that if you really want leverage, you just play the Spanish forwards and hope they go wrong.
Talking about tournaments, for sure. Yeah. Love the Spanish forwards too. Like, they'll be less popular. Like you said, they really bounced back and looked better. What I will add to that is it's possible that Slovakia is worse than North Macedonia.
Croatia.
No. Sorry, I meant.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, no. I meant Spain might have played the worst team in the tournament in the game that they looked so good in.
Yes.
We were very disappointed with the way Spain looked in the first 2 games against Sweden and Poland. They made a couple changes in the lineup, and I mean, they looked great against Slovakia. They created tons of chances, scored 5 goals, could have scored more goals. Love going to those guys for tournaments, especially since they're going to be less popular than the France players.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally agree. for like cash, I don't really see where else you go. Like, I think if Danny Olmo starts, because they're the first game, so we'll know if he's starting. Like, I think you can go there. But like, I kind of mentioned Andre Kramaric a few slates ago as like a possible cash play, but like at 8,100 against Spain, that's insane to me. I just don't know.
Crazy price on Kramaric.
Yeah, and even if you try to get someone like Nikola Vlasic, who scored in the last game, like 6,100 is, I mean, he doesn't go 90, and I don't know how much of the ball they have.
Right.
So then you're like, do you play Breel Embolo?
Right.
Is that where we go?
The other options don't look great. You're right. So no to Kramaric. I mean, just because of price and matchup or whatever. But yeah, then look to Vlasic. We don't think they're going to have the ball much, like you said. I mean, he would absolutely need a goal or an assist, or he's going to hurt your lineups. So if you do want to pay down, yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd just have to be Breel and Bolo. We think Switzerland might have better floors than Croatia, might have more chances. We'll see more of the ball. He's played 90 minutes in all but the Turkey game, where he played 86. He's probably their best chance of scoring against France, their best chance of beating France. I mean, he we know what type of player he is. He offers something different. Can score goals out of nothing. If you want to pay down, I think going to him over those Croatia guys is what I would do as well.
Okay.
And then just, for tournaments.
I think you play those guys in tournaments too.
That's what I'm just, just for, I'm not going to say you can play everyone. You can play everyone, but I don't want to do that. I mean, of course, it's a 2-game slate. You could take a chance on these Croatia guys. You can take a chance on the Switzerland guys. For all the reasons we've talked about, I'll probably take a chance on the Switzerland guys instead. But yeah, I would say like it makes a lot of sense to play a forward from Croatia or Switzerland because they're not going to be popular. So I would do it based on which one of those teams you think is more likely to score. Or for instance, if you're down on Spain and higher on France or vice versa, then, make your decision that way. They're going to be low owned, but they're all good tournament plays if they make sense in your lineup. For me, I prefer Switzerland.
There definitely could be a Patrick Schick on this slate.
Mm-hmm.
Like today's Patrick Schick shows exactly what can happen. And
that, I guess we can bring up, there was a red card in that game. Red cards happen. If that happened to Spain or France, changes the game totally.
Yeah.
So absolutely. These games go a lot different than we predict very often. I can't tell you how many times I wish I played the striker that was unplayable, untouched. You can't play this guy today. I can't tell you how many times I wish I played that guy. So yeah, to take some chances on some of those underdog forwards.
So there are 4 midfielders that I think we need to talk about. Because I think they're all pretty much in the cash conversation.
Yes.
Before we get to them, Perisic is out because he tested positive for COVID. I didn't even actually put Xherdan Shaqiri in that group of 4, but at 8,200, I don't see how you play him in cash. But I mean, fantastic GPP play to me, even in a France stack. Like if you want to start a lineup, Benzema, Mbappe, Shaqiri, it's going to be pretty top heavy, but like if that game starts to go back and forth, Shaqiri is probably a part of whatever Switzerland can do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But the price is killer for cash.
Yeah. So I thought there were 4 midfielders too. That 8,200 Shaqiri price is killer for cash. You're right. And Modric 7,800. So those are two midfielders that are normally cash plays that we like to go to. Just a quick thing about Modric. Before last slate, I said that I wouldn't play him in GPPs. That was based on him being a defensive midfielder in the first two games of the tournament. They moved him up against Scotland and played with Brozovic and Kovacic as like the pivots. I think that's what's projected for this game.
Yep.
Okay.
Especially with Perisic out. I think they need him up front.
So I guess you said Shaqiri tough for cash, and it didn't seem like you liked Shaqiri for cash. Are you playing Modric in cash?
I think so. I was more so, and I don't know why I'm more comfortable with him. It could be that he takes everything instead of a split that Shaqiri probably has, but it goes against everything that I said at the beginning. Like the fantasy point, there are probably more opportunities for floor points from Switzerland than Croatia. The slight salary savings helps me a little bit. This is really bad analysis, but I'm going to use it anyway. Modric just always seems to get there. And if they have 30% possession, I think he still gets there, which is really lazy, but that's why.
No, but I see what you're saying, and it makes sense. Like, yeah, so this was another reason that I thought this was a interesting slate and a tougher slate. I felt the same way. Like, I lean towards Modric, but it goes against what we said about Switzerland. Shaqiri, yeah, it doesn't seem like he's as safe. He hasn't, and not that Modric is safe, but like you say, he gets there. And like if he's in that advanced position, you got to think he'll still get there, at least from a cash perspective. He seems safer. I will say I was hard on Shaqiri before the tournament. He looked great last game against a bad Turkey team.
I was going to say, I'm not sure anybody's looked bad against Turkey is the problem.
Right. But yeah, this is like, if you lean Shaqiri here over Modric, I wouldn't have that big of a problem with it. I couldn't really argue with you. And you're probably not losing too much. Like, unless Modric is involved in a goal, he's not going to go out and put up, 15 floor points, most likely against you. But yeah, another thing that like should help Modric get there, although you never know, but like them being underdogs, if they go down, at any point in the game, Croatia chasing should help. And he's for sure going 90. He has a monopoly of set pieces. So yeah, I'm going to side with Modric there also.
Okay.
So where are you going for the second midfielder?
So I think you have to have a discussion with yourself about whether you play Sarabia or Koke if they both start. It's the first game, so we'll know. We'll know if one of them is out. Sarabia was awesome in that last game. There was a whole thing in the Discord before the match, like, do you play Sarabia or Koke? And everybody's like, well, what are the set pieces? They're going to split them, blah, blah, blah. And the game ends. And I played Koke like a clown. And I was like, well, the only thing that I can hang my hat on is that Koke led them in corners. Like he had more free kicks than Sarabia. And somebody was like, well, he didn't have the goal and assist. I'm like, no, you're right. But, trying to do process over results here. I mean, Sarabia is just so much more of an attacking player. Looking back, it was really stupid to prioritize Koke. And I think Sarabia is going to be super popular if he's starting. Yeah.
If Sarabia starts, I think he's like a lock, basically. I'll take him over Shaqiri or Modric. They had 7 corners against Slovakia. Koke took 5. Just to talk about Koke too, I think you could play both of them. Koke seems pretty safe at least, and the price is good. But just comparing the two, like it seems like they're priced a little too close. Actually, Sarabia feels cheap actually on this slate. Like you gotta, he's gonna be in the front 3 of Spain. So like, why should Moreno be 2K more than him? I mean, he shouldn't be. Why should Morata's cheaper now, but he's still 1K more than Sarabia, gets subbed early. I mean, it's like, it's a clear misprice for me. Sarabia comes with upside too. Yeah, you're getting set pieces, you're getting possession, chances created most likely. So yeah, even if he doesn't have them all, well, he doesn't have them all. He has, Koke probably has a slight majority. I think that open play value and everything else, yeah, you should feel comfortable with Sarabia. I think he's the best option if you're just picking one.
Okay. So the cash thought that I had was, if you like it was weird to me to be like, all right, let me play Griezmann and Mbappe and Sarabia and Koke. But it's like, if you can lock up all the set pieces from the 2 big favorites on a 2-game slate, then that's probably not that bad. Mm-hmm. So the fourth midfielder I have to bring into this conversation is, as I'm saying, do I want to play both Sarabia and Koke? And then I take one click down. Is he even down? Hold on. Oh, no. Maybe I had to pass him. But I'm basically staring at Koke for another spot. And I'm like, wait a minute. Would I rather play Koke or Paul Pogba? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want to play Koke. That's not fun. Mm-hmm. Koke's not going to score a goal or do, take shots from deep. And so that's why I think Paul Pogba is the reason I don't play Sarabia and Koke together.
I would say that that's perfectly fine. Big fan of Pogba in general, and on this slate too. Yeah, basically the same price, 6K. No set pieces, but he has a different type of floor. Yeah. It's not crazy high, but it can be similar to Koke's. And yeah, definitely more upside. Rui Patricio made a great save to deny Pogba what would have been an awesome long-range goal in the last game. But yeah, he did come up with an assist, like we've been saying. He looks for those long ball or those through balls, whether they're on the ground or over the top, for Benzema and Mbappe all the time. He's good in the air. And yeah, you just like you said, like just as a player like who do you want to roster? Paul Pogba or Koke? I mean, who do you see scoring goals in big games? I mean, everything points to Pogba for me too. Yeah. Big fan of Pogba.
Yeah. I just, for cash wise, like Pogba's not usually a great cash play. 6,000's a little pricey, I guess, but like in this matchup, and the fact that like giving up Koke doesn't mean you're giving up Spain's set pieces either. So there's that. I mean, if Sarabia doesn't start, Koke obviously becomes more of a priority, but then you just play Pogba in the Sarabia spot. That's easy.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. The one thing I'll say is, like, if you want to make the argument on the other side, if you said, well, Koke is going to score 10 points for 5,700, isn't he a great cash play? Yeah. Probably. Yeah. We normally wouldn't play Pogba for 6K in cash over a guy like Koke. So like in terms of the safe floor, If you prefer Koke, I completely understand it.
Yep. I think Koke falls into the category of a vintage Jordan Cooper play, and I'm not sure even Jordan would play him on this slate. He probably does. Anyway.
It'll be interesting to see. I like pay attention to ownership in your contests. When there's a lot of tough decisions like this, look what the sharper players do. There's a lot of tough decisions, like really close decisions. Mostly, I would say just there isn't a right answer necessarily for some of them. So go with what you think. Yeah, play. I'd rather play Pogba than Koke too. So I'm gonna do that for most likely. That's what I would recommend.
Where do you fall on the Steven Zuber question?
Yeah, okay. Zuber smashed last game against Turkey.
Sure did.
They moved Ricardo Rodriguez to the back three. Zuber, he becomes Switzerland's version of like Denzel Dumfries or Thomas Meunier or those Spinazzola. Even he's okay. Honestly, I don't mind Zuber. Definitely don't mind him for tournaments. We mentioned Turkey didn't have a great tournament, but he took 4 shots, had 5 crosses, and had 5 shots assisted. I mean, he is very likely to be involved in any sort of attacking success that Switzerland might have. Supporting the forwards, basically playing forward at times when they have the ball. Yep. And he got I was going to say he got a salary increase, but it actually came down. Yeah. For the matchup against France, 5,200 seems okay. Yeah, he has a floor and he has upside. Don't mind Zuber at all. And I don't think he'll be popular. I mean, he won't be popular. So yeah, good call.
Just as we mentioned, Thomas Meunier looked down and he already has an assist on a Thorgan Hazard goal today. So,
okay, yeah.
No Thorgan here.
No Thorgan here either.
I hate this tournament. So there's a ton of defensive midfielders that don't really do much on this slate, but we play them sporadically when they're big favorites. So we've got Busquets at 4,000, Pedri at 3,800, Rodri 36, Conte 35. Like, do you think any of these guys fit into a reasonable bit? Like for tournaments, I'm just not seeing enough upside with these guys that I just don't know why you end up in this range for midfield.
Yeah, I don't really either. No, like Busquets, no, it's not. I'm not playing Busquets. I guess what I'll say is like, if you're stacking France, I mean, we mentioned like maybe playing Mbappe, Benzema, and Griezmann, or even if you just play 2 of them. An assist could come from someone like Rabiot, for example. So if you're going to do it, just make sure it makes sense.
Right.
But no, like, I think these guys are going to hurt your lineup more often than they're going to help. Switzerland defensive mids, yeah, they're all cheap, but no upside. Croatia too, Kovacic, Brozovic. No, I mean,
I think the only guy, and I am borderline embarrassed to say this, but I think the only guy down here that I think is worth considering, and it's only in tournaments, is Granit Xhaka.
Wow. Okay.
The dude just rips a shot from deep, and you never know what happens at that point.
Okay, yeah. I support that. 3,200. No, you're right. You're right.
I think he's more likely to luck himself into a goal like that than Pedri or Brozovic or Conte. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, okay. I agree with you. If you're playing a guy in this range, like at least try to get a little bit of goal upside.
Right.
But yeah,
but I don't think you're in this
really range. I'm really struggling to like find some merit to any of these guys. Yeah, no, if you play one, correlate it to one of your forwards or one of your midfielders. We know assists can happen in a myriad of lucky ways or fortunate ways too. So yeah, just make sure it correlates. These guys standing low. Or I guess if you're playing a guy like Xhaka, like going, that goal, for instance, then yeah, you don't correlate that with a Swiss player. But yeah, in general, I'll try to stay out of this range if I can.
Yep. Okay, so defenders is kind of weird on this slate because obviously Ricardo Rodriguez is going to have some people looking at him because of the set pieces. He's only going to have a few. Like he'll split with Shaqiri. They should win more than Croatia win, but like it's probably still marginal. He could play as a center back. We were just talking about Zuber playing basically in his spot, and they push Rodriguez back. So at 5,200, do you think that's low enough where you're like, I'll still get some set pieces, and I'll play him in cash?
If he's in a back three, no, I'm not playing him. Not even in cash. But yeah, like
he had 4 crosses against Turkey.
Okay, let me think about it a little bit more. There aren't a lot of great options for expensive defenders on this slate.
Agreed.
So yeah, that means like Rodriguez has a better chance to outscore that range. There are scenarios, where Switzerland go down early, where he could still end up with, 5, 6, 7, 8 crosses, if they end up taking a lot of corners from that side, chasing the game. I'm just leaning towards no. If he was on the wing, then yeah, I think just adding a little bit of open play value to Rodriguez would push him over the top. It's sort of one of those decisions. I don't think you need to do it for 5,200. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm off. And the reason I'm off is the conversation we just had, and that if you play Rodriguez, you're probably playing one of those midfielders we were just talking about. And so do you want to go in with a cash lineup with Rodriguez and Granit Xhaka or Rodriguez and Conte? Like you're essentially punting a spot to get Ricardo Rodriguez in as a whatever they are, plus 400, like whatever.
Yeah, I actually think that's a great point. That's
so or you're paying way down at forward, which I don't think anyone's doing anyway. Like it just brings you into a construction that's very different.
Great point. Yeah,
GPP wise, go nuts.
That should be one of the main things you think about. Like to play Rodriguez, it means you have to punt somewhere else or play a significantly worse player somewhere else. So does Rodriguez and that player outscore, your punt defender and, whichever attacker or midfielder you're spending up on instead? I agree with you. It makes Rodriguez, it's tough. You have to sacrifice to afford him. And why are you, what are you really trying to afford? It doesn't seem like, it seems like it's a tough path to Rodriguez having 10 points. And that's what you're looking for if you're paying 5,200 there.
Yeah, it just seems like there are players on this slate who are worth prioritizing, but he's not on that list.
I completely agree. I don't want to play anybody. That's how it comes down to with the defenders. Like, I think we see enough lineups where you pay 5,200 or 5,500 for two of them. Yeah. So like, I don't want to play anybody either. So like, who's the best defender on this slate? Well, there's no one really on France. Jordi Alba, but he's not a cash play really. He just doesn't have the floor. He got the assist last game. Again, 5,800 is expensive too. You're going to have to sacrifice to get Jordi Alba. Good tournament play for sure, but not somewhere that I'm going to go in cash. Is Spain's right back? Who's going to start at right back for Spain?
I assume it's Llorente, but you think they move him up? What do we have here?
No, I was just because I'm looking at the RotoWire lineup, and I think it has the other Llorente.
Oh, yeah, that's probably just a mistake. That would be something.
Yeah.
They're the first game, so we'll know, but I don't think that's right. Let me change.
Right. Azpilicueta played their last game. You think it would be Marcos Llorente, but yeah, anyways, we'll know. But just in general, I agree. I think there's no one you really want to pay here. So quickly, we'll go to France. Pavard, 5,400 is just like too much for Pavard. I mean, especially for cash. So no. And then I think Luca Dean is going to be out after getting injured against Portugal, and I think Jules Koundé is going to be out too.
Yep.
I would have had a little bit of interest in him for just 4,100 playing as left back. So yeah, I guess Hernandez.
Hernandez is gimpy too.
Yeah, Hernandez is gimpy. So, I mean, if Hernandez doesn't start, I guess you could see like they use Rabiot back there against Portugal. I guess you could see that. Or maybe they bring another center back in and push one of the center backs out there. But anyways, you could just, no matter what, you can just go all the way down and play Rafael Varane as one of your guys. 2,900 against, or just 2,900 as a favorite. He shouldn't be below 3K. So that seems like one defender. I mean, do you agree, or where else are you looking?
I think you should just actually go further down than that.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I think that's what you do. You just literally find the cheapest guys you can find. I think Fabian Schär at 2,600 is fine. Like, I don't think you're getting anyone. I don't think you're getting any defender with like 8-point safety. Maybe it's Alba, maybe it's Rodriguez, but even then, like if they finished at 6, you're not shocked.
No.
And so Varane is obviously a favorite, so that helps. You hope that there's a clean sheet in there that gets you at least 3 points. Schär doesn't get you that, but he's kind of a big target in the box. Kimpembe is 3,400, but you probably play Varane over him anyway, just because he's cheaper. Laporte at 3,900 feels very expensive if I'm trying to save, but I think you're literally at the bottom. I don't think there's a realistic way to find anyone in the middle. Like I think Barisic is supposed to start for Croatia, or could start, and at one point we were like, oh, we'd play him. He's a high volume crosser, but like against Spain, 4,800 seems nuts.
Yep.
I just the only one that like sort of made me look again is the top of this chart here, Kevin Mbabu at 4,200. And I don't think he's a cash play because you kind of you end up sacrificing. And I guess like if Sarabia doesn't start, then maybe you have a little more money. But for tournaments, I think Mbabu is kind of fun.
Yeah, me too. 4,200, even in a matchup against France, it seems like a little bit cheap. He plays in an advanced position.
I'm not sure he should be $1,000 less than Rodriguez.
Yeah, I agree, and he gets involved in the attack quite a bit. I want to say, again, I don't know how DraftKings uses their algorithm, but it could be because he played 58 minutes and then 1 minute. You mentioned a no for cash, and I definitely agree with that. If the manager came out and said Mbabu is playing 90 minutes, I think there'd be a real chance that he could be the highest scoring defender on the slate. And for just 42, from a floor perspective, even. So then, it could even make some sense just with that cheaper salary. But regardless of that, for tournaments, like Mbabu quite a bit, and people won't play him.
Yeah. Yep. I think.
And then I agree with you. You can't go to these Croatia guys. Barisic, too expensive. Laporte, too expensive. Yeah, I ended on. I was glad to hear you say that there's just pay down. There's really no one. I agree. I ended on Varane and Kimpembe. Again, I'm not prioritizing that though. If I need some more money, I'll just pay all the way down for one of those Swiss guys, like you said, Schär 2,600. Akanji 2,700. Whoever.
Yeah, whoever. So
Croatia guys too, I guess 2,500, whatever.
Exactly, it's whatever. If there's a 2 as the first number of the salary and there's a green check mark, he's totally viable in cash or tournaments. I don't think Schär is like a bad. I think if you play, Shaqiri and Schär or Rodriguez and Schär, I doubt Mbabu and Schär link up, but I don't think that's that bad for tournaments. And I feel like all of this talk of Switzerland means that Croatia beats Spain tomorrow, 4-0. But anyway.
Yeah. Hey, well, yesterday we talked quite a bit about the Czech Republic, and then they came out and did it. So you never know.
Yeah. So is it a Lloris or Simone slate, or do you end up just going with Livakovic or Sommer?
Yeah, goalie can be goalie's always, or not always, but it can be an interesting question. It is on this slate too. I thought about it quite a bit. I couldn't decide at first, but for me, yes, it's Lloris and Simone slate for me. The way I thought about it was, if there was a lot of questionable spots, and for me there is, like we mentioned, Koke and Pogba, Modric and Shaqiri, Rick Rod not being a great play, some questions surrounding Griezmann, even questions surrounding second forward. So basically what I'm saying is there's not like a chalk, build that all the sharps are going to have, or this is a clear way to go. Or sorry, even if there is, for me, it wouldn't matter. I think you could make up a lot with the expensive goalie in that situation. What am I? I'm not really sacrificing anything. So I think for me, it might be a priority. I don't know. Where do you fall on it? You can obviously make arguments for the cheap keepers. What do you think?
I think that's the problem, is that you can make an argument for all of them. You can't really throw out any of them. I think Lloris has higher save upside than Simone. And so I think he's worth the extra 400. For the cheaper guys, I think Sommer probably has more save upside than Livakovic, just the way that we think these games play out. Do you think like I think one of the interesting 2v2s that I was playing around with is Sarabia and one of the cheap guys, or Koke and one of the expensive ones. So it's
Okay.
like, is
If
that
that was
salary
my
difference worth it?
yeah, okay. If that was my specific decision, then I'm going with the cheap keeper because I'll take Sarabia's goal and assist upside over hoping that my expensive keeper is going to keep the clean sheet. Um, so yeah, I think there's like quite a bit of difference between Sarabia and Koke, not from a floor perspective, but just for that little extra bit of upside.
Yep.
So in that case, yes, I'm not going to recommend prioritizing or spending up a keeper when you have to make like that type of sacrifice. I just think it might be a way for me. It looks like a way to get it looks like a way to get fantasy points where there's spots that you're just not sure about. Like, yeah, I guess I don't know. It seems like the best way to put it.
I mean, the win clean sheet odds are pretty favorable for France and Spain, and we don't have a lot of guys who have an easy path to 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can pay less than 6,000, and in Simone's case, it's almost 5,000 for a decent path to 10 points, then I think that's totally reasonable.
Absolutely. Like I just like, I think about it like this, and I exaggerate a little when I think about it, but Lloris or Simon, one of them is going to score 12 or 14 a lot of times. And there's a lot of times on this slate where Livakovic and Summer are both going to score 2. One might score negative. That is a huge difference, 10, 12, 14 point difference. I mean, that almost will just make you cash, like regardless of what your lineup is. I mean, it makes up for so much. So like when there's not like smash cash plays that you have to have, I like going with the expensive keeper.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, we talked yesterday, that on smaller slates, you tend to get better scores from the favorites. That's when you tend to pay up for a goalkeeper, just because you don't have as many cheap guys to make it up for. We say that on a day. I'm trying to see here. What did Vlasic end up with? 11.3. Although that game was wacky anyway. But yeah, I think I'm bummed that you said this all, because my path led me to one of the cheaper guys.
Yeah. Okay. Like I was just thinking, like, again, we've also said, and you and Jordan have talked about many times, goalkeeper is the last spot, whatever fits. It doesn't always happen, the way I described it or the way you want it to. I'm just saying, when it does happen that way, it very much makes it worth it. But spending down, all the way down, if it gets you everything you want, you just do that. I mean, there's also the chance that Lloris scores 12 points with 1 save and a shutout, and they win 1-0 and have 7 shots on goal, and Summer also scores 12 points. Okay, so we've seen those scenarios happen also.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm obviously fine with paying down to. I mean, this is goalkeeper. One thing I will say, just the gap between Simone and Livakovic seems a bit too small. Actually, right before, like, I mentioned that France and Spain were both minus 163. About a half hour before that, Spain were actually bigger favorites than France.
Oh.
Obviously, it was slightly, but yeah, it feels like that gap's a little too small.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right. If anybody has any follow-up for Ryan, you can find him and me in the RotoWire Discord, which is open for all subscribers. Just go to rotowire.com/chat to get in there. If you'd like to try a free 10-day subscription to RotoWire, you can just go to rotowire.com/soccer trial. No credit card required. Gets you access to all the sports we cover, as well as that Discord chat. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you could please hit the like button below. And if you are listening to the audio version, as always, if you could please rate and review it wherever you listen. Ryan, thank you for that, and good luck on Monday.
Thanks, Andrew. Good luck, everybody.